Hello, 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 listeners of our little pod. How's everyone doing today? We hope well. If you don't know, I'm your host, SJ, and I have my co host with me who I've known for over 15 years, my good friend,
Jeff Francis.
I hope you guys are ready because you're listening to the Popcorn Patrol podcast. How's your week going, Jeff?
My week's going pretty good. How about yours?
Same old, nothing crazy. Just getting ready for school. The kids just finished like day camp, and been baking. I've been doing like lots of meal prep, trying to stick stuff in the freezer so I don't have to like cook every day. It's a pain in the butt, but it's kind of a lifesaver later down the road, especially when you're cooking for three people and three boys in the house, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and just trying to do my thing, just trying to get our little pod going and trying to figure that stuff out. It's been a work in progress, right? Like you and I, we've chatted about this. It's
Yep.
been a learning curve, but it's fun, and and I get to chat with you and catch up with you guys and with you and your lovely wife, and it's nice. It's nice to do that.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun so far.
Okay. Welcome back, listeners. We're here with a classic movie. We've got Top Gun for you. And, Jeff, give us some fun facts. What do you know about this movie?
Top Gun was released May 16th, 1986. It stars Tom Cruise, Val Kilmer, Kelly McGillis, Tim Robbins, and Anthony Edwards. It had a budget of $15 million and brought in $176 million at the box office in over 1,500 theaters. So that's pretty good numbers. Yeah, $15 million budget. It brings in more than 10 times that. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I think this movie, I mean, I was just little when this movie came out, but I think this movie was a pretty big hit for its day, So I'm not surprised that it did those numbers at all. For those of you who don't know what this movie is about, it's about a pilot named Maverick, or Pete Mitchell, played by none other than Tom Cruise, and his best bud Goose, Nick Bradshaw, played by Anthony Edwards. They get recruited to the Navy's prestigious fighter flight school, where they have to compete with other top pilots to secure top standings to go on missions. Maverick's cocky attitude ends up getting him into some trouble, and he must learn to overcome some sticky situations, including his beef with fellow pilot Iceman, played by Val Kilmer, all the while gunning for the attention of the beautiful and lovely flight instructor, Charlie Blackwood, played by Kelly Gillis. Should we get into the first half of the movie, Jeff?
Yeah, sure. I wanted to say something first. I was looking at some information and found out that at Top Gun, like the actual location that they like on campus, you're not allowed to talk about Top Gun, the movie. You get a $5 fine for unprofessional conduct if you're heard talking about the movie or quoting the movie. It just happens so much when that movie first came out.
My question for you, though, is that $5 like 1980s $5, or is that like 2023 inflation $5?
It's just been $5 that whole time. So
oh shoot.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you gotta pay the piper, I guess. But yeah, I did like how they put in that little blurb right at the beginning. They have that little forward just explaining kind of what Top Gun is, and that it actually is a real academy. It's known as the Fighter Weapons School. That's what I was thinking about. So, and they have that fade away, and you get this scene where the sky's all yellow, everything's in shades of like gold almost, and you see these outlines of these amazing planes, which I thought was really cool. It's a very well done opening scene, and I thought that was really neat. And then you hear that song. You hear that bloody song is stuck in my head. And you know which one I'm talking about, right?
Yes, I do, yes.
Kenny Loggins with his highway to the danger zone.
Yep, Danger Zone.
I it's stuck in my head forever. I can't lose it. So like I'll be walking around the house and I'll just be like, highway to the danger zone. And I don't even know why. It's just stuck. And I've never heard that. I don't, maybe I have heard that song, but it was never one that stood out to me before this movie. Yeah, I noticed that first, in the opening sequence there.
Well, watching this movie, it didn't feel like I was watching a movie. The
Mhm.
cast had such great chemistry, like Tom Cruise and Anthony Edwards. They were like best buddies. It would just
Yeah.
be like me and my best buddy, like in the Navy. I guess it's not the Air Force, it's the Navy, which is strange how that works. But yeah, they just had such good chemistry that it didn't feel like I was watching a movie.
Yeah, I agree with that. You really see it when they're doing the simulations together. They have that simulation, the first simulation scene when the two enemy jets are spotted, and you see Maverick's cockiness, but we also see how good of a pilot he is, and we also see his relationship with Goose, and
Mhm.
you know, um, like a mutual kind of respect there for each other. And yeah, I really liked seeing that as well. And Goose was played very well. And like you said, you do feel like you're watching a true friendship in those moments, which
Which is
is nice.
really interesting because apparently Tom Cruise and Val Kilmer did not get along on set. And Val Kilmer plays Iceman, who's his
Yes.
rival in the movie, and they didn't get along on set. Val Kilmer didn't speak to him, wasn't nice to him. So at the end of the movie, they gained a respect for each other at like in real life and in the movie, and it just made that feel much more genuine than it would
Oh,
have if it
really?
was just a bunch of acting. Yeah, they did not like each other. They did
They
not
did not
talk
gel, eh?
between takes. They did not talk like outside of filming while they were still like on set or in their trailers. They did not get along at all.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting. I feel like they acted that way through the movie. I feel it was accurate, but you never know how these actors really feel about each other. But to me, it just felt like characters that they were playing on screen. We see that when they're in the locker, the locker scenes, and they're chatting, like, Val Kilmer's like, you're dangerous, and kind of not threatening him, but basically calling him out on some stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely a confrontation that they have in the
Hmm.
locker room. And yeah, Iceman tells Maverick that he doesn't like him because he's dangerous. He thinks he's going to put everybody in jeopardy. And we actually see that in one of the simulations, like when they're out in the field training. There, he goes off and leaves his wingman alone, and his
Right,
wingman ends up getting taken down.
right,
And so we see that, right? And so yeah, that's what Iceman is worried about is how dangerous Maverick is. And he
right.
is. Maverick is like he learns after they lost that simulation, he learned. He's like, yeah, I never got to do that again. I can't leave my guy
Yeah,
I
you
can't
see
leave
him
him.
kind
Yeah.
of like really thinking about his actions at that point. Up until then, there's, obviously an arrogance and a cockiness to him, but it's because he knows that he is a great pilot. We see that start to change once it affects his fellow flymates, his,
Yep.
Goose, and you really start to see him question things a little more, for sure. I think that's like definitely a turning point. Um,
Something else that I noticed, like that just touches a little bit on the cockiness of Maverick is when he's out flying, he does this like flyby of the control tower
yeah,
any
yeah,
chance
yeah.
that he can get, and he always gets in trouble for it.
He still
And
does
like,
it.
but he still does it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. And then
Yeah, it was good. There was some good like quips in this movie. It had like a little bit of everything. I felt it really added to the whole thing. I just wanted to go back to like the first half of the movie. I don't know if you noticed the commanders and the captains and stuff, they pretty much are kind of in awe of Maverick. I don't know if you noticed, like they respect him, but they also just are like scolding the crap out of him, like just, to get to try and control him kind of thing, to not be so wild when he's flying.
Well,
Um,
the movie does a good job at showing you that he is dangerous.
yeah,
Sure, he's the best,
yeah,
but he's dangerous. And part of being the best is walking that line or flying that line between being dangerous and not being dangerous.
right. Yeah, he definitely is a little bit insubordinate. I find, like, always wanting to prove himself and prove to others that he can do what can't be done. And he doesn't care like whose toes he steps on. Like that's what I get from the beginning of this movie. You kind of get glimpses of it too when he's out on his own and he's on his bike, he's on his Kawasaki and he's riding around. He's like almost like he's a thrill seeker, like a thrill chaser, and you see him trying to like race with like alongside the jets and stuff, and just the pure joy and excitement on his face, which is kind of neat and very telling of the character, I think.
I
I
think
feel
Tom
that.
Cruise is kind of like that in real life.
I feel like
He
you might
he
be right.
seems he does a lot of his own stunts in his movies. And so I know for this one, I was reading that uh, Tom Cruise didn't want to do this movie at first.
Right.
The first person they had in mind was John Travolta, and the
Really?
second person they had in mind was Tom Cruise. But Tom Cruise didn't want to do it, so he turned it down. And they offered it to Rob Lowe, and they offered it to Nicolas Cage, and they offered it to a whole bunch of like 8 or 9 other actors, and they all turned them down. And then Tom Cruise's agent was just like, go up in the plane, go up in the jet, fly with them for a little bit, and if you come down from the jet and you don't like it, then don't do it. But if you enjoyed yourself, then do it. So Tom Cruise went up there. They did some barrel rolls and they did some other maneuvers, and he threw up. Like he was barfing, and when he got down on the flight deck, he like ran over and called his agent and is like, yeah, I'm in, I'm doing this. And
Yes.
I think that's kind of what probably kickstarted his thrill-seeking
His
adventures
need
off
for
in
speed, his
all
addiction to
these.
thrill.
Yeah, because there's one scene in one of the Mission Impossibles where he's hanging off the side of a plane, and
Yep.
that's a real stunt that they did.
Yep. Yeah,
And
I've seen
with
some
him,
clips like behind the scenes stuff with him, and I know he tries to do a lot of it himself. Probably whatever he won't get in trouble for, he tries to
yep,
do, and then
yep.
some.
And he's probably in real life kind of like the Maverick character, where because of his name, he can push the director and the people that have the red tape up for doing your own stunts. He can probably push them a little bit more than a new
Sure.
actor could, or a less experienced actor could.
Another scene that was kind of fun was when they went to the bar after one of their sims and they meet up with Charlie and the guys are shooting the crap or whatever, and they see um, Maverick sees Charlie's character at the bar. I felt like that's also kind of a challenge for him, trying to get the older woman that, is beautiful, that's not paying anyone attention.
I think
And
it's hilarious that she ended up being the instructor in the flight class. So
yeah,
like she shoots him down. So okay, so Goose and him have this kind of like bet or competition of like who's gonna pick a lady up,
right.
and of course it's gonna be of course it's gonna be Maverick
Yeah, yeah.
because he's like that,
He's
guy. Like
going
he's that
shopping for
guy.
ladies.
Yeah,
He's a ladies'
exactly.
man.
So she walks in and he just looks at him, and is just like, okay, we're gonna do this bit that we normally do without saying it like that. And
Yeah.
next thing you know, it's like this karaoke song that they do, and they're singing it to her, and then she's like, okay, fine, sit down, we'll talk. And then she's grilling him about like how often he does that, and it's
Yeah.
just this really, like, you can see that the interest is there right away from her.
Right.
Like she's really interested in him, but not not making it obvious to him. And yeah, so
But I have to
it's kind of
say,
funny.
they did a good job at kind of like introducing her and then building their little flirty thing that they had going on. And like you could
Yeah.
really feel it. Like it felt like a real thing. It wasn't over the top. It wasn't like, in your face or crass or anything like that. It was just very fun. And I really like that about that scene, a particular scene where she's introduced, is that
Mhm.
you know, she knows who
I
she
feel it's
is.
kind of like it's rather strange that he followed her into the ladies' room. I thought that was odd.
Yeah,
And
that would
maybe
be like a
that's
Me Too kind
is
of
that like an
mood right now.
older is that like an older generation thing? Maybe some of the older people that watch our show might be able to let us know if that's something that they would have done back in the 80s.
Today.
I'm not sure.
I
It didn't
mean,
work for
maybe
him
if you
though.
were as bold as Maverick, maybe
Maybe.
you would do that. But like, I don't know how many people would have actually done that. That's definitely like a movie thing.
And
It
then
would
she
be
comes out, she's reapplying her lipstick and looks at Goose and on the way by says, "Your friend was incredible,"
right,
or something like very positive. And
right.
he's just like watching
Yeah,
her go by, he's just in shock. And then Maverick comes out and they start
right. It's
talking and the scene
implied
changes.
that
Yeah,
something
it's
happened.
hilarious.
But it's
Which
funny.
nothing
It's like,
happened.
how long was that conversation? Because I
Yeah.
didn't feel like it was that
It
long
didn't like it didn't seem like
conversation.
yeah, if I was Goose, I would have been making fun of him. "Oh, you're only in there for like a minute." Like that was pretty quick.
Yeah, yeah, right. I would have been riding his tail about it for
And like the
sure.
very next scene after that is them sitting in class talking, like listening to the I don't know what he is, if he's a
Captain.
general or a lieutenant or something, and he's standing there talking, introducing this person, and then she walks in, and then he's all embarrassed, or not embarrassed, but like it's awkward.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny how that worked out.
There's a few of them, a few of the students, when you look around and they're sitting in their chairs, they're like, oh no, because they were all singing to
They
her.
were
They
all
were
singing, yeah,
all,
all of them were singing to her,
yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so you kind of see like that awkward moment where they realize, oh crap, like this is my instructor. And, you
And then he
know,
shows her up in class too. So
yeah,
like this goes back to his like arrogance and cockiness where, she says something and he totally just contradicts what she says, and she's just like, No, I know everything there is to know about these things." And he's like, "Well, I lived it. I seen it,
right
I was part of this."
in your face.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of those little moments where he's like, yeah, and what? I
Yeah.
know exactly what I'm doing, and you definitely that those are the moments where you see how cocky he is and how confident with himself, or that like how confident he feels about himself, kind of thing,
But
you
the
know,
persistence pays off for him because he is able to like so after one of their training exercises.
assimilation.
He's sitting in his little office that I guess that he would have access to,
Hmm.
and they're filling out paperwork, whatever, and she comes in and she starts giving him advice on what he could do better on his training there.
Hmm.
And he kind of just ignores it and is like, "Well, why don't we go out on a date?" And she's like, "Yeah, I don't
Right,
date people at
students.
work or students or whatever." And but then she agrees to a date but writes it down on a piece of paper. And then the other guys make fun of him like, "Oh, you struck out, you didn't get the date." But
Right.
but he doesn't say, "Oh, yes, I did." He's like, "No, you stink." He tells the guy he
Yeah,
smells
yeah,
bad.
yeah, you smell
And
bad.
then leaves and goes on his date.
Yeah. No, that was it was well done. Um, the thing about the 80s movies is that I'm not a prude or anything, but things were just like a little classier back then. And so it's like that whole thing is like, you don't need to say what happened. You know what happened. She knows what
Yep.
happened, but you don't need to say what happens to anybody. Like, you don't have to prove yourself to anyone. And like, I like what they did, how they did that. So it shows that like his character still has integrity. He's not just some cocky
Yep.
showboater. He does have some integrity to his character, and you 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 see it in those little moments again where he's like kiss and don't tell kind of thing. It's that kind of vibe, you know.
Yep.
Um,
Now that's
Yeah.
where I've got it marked down as kind of like the end of the first act. And then after that, it goes into like the second act. It ramps up for the rest of the movie.
Okay.
Is there anything else that you wanted to talk to about that first
Um,
act?
yeah, I wanted to mention Mike Viper character, Viper's character.
Yep.
And I just wanted to mention how much like I really liked his character because I felt like he was very supportive to Maverick without being upfront and in his face kind of thing. He was in the kind of in the back, kind of watching everything Maverick's doing and how he's behaving and trying to guide him in a better manner, which
Yep.
I found really interesting. And yeah, we don't see him very much, but when he does make a presence, I really like his character a lot. Then also we see his date taking place at Charlie's house where he goes there, and this plays into that thing where like kiss and don't tell thing. But he gets there and he's like, I need a shower. And she's like,
He's also late.
yeah, he's
Yeah,
late.
he
He's
shows
late
up
because they
late.
were playing beach volleyball. Okay, let me talk about that beach
Yeah,
volleyball
it's the
scene. Okay,
classic topless beach volleyball scene.
listen, listen. I'm married. I'm not dead. There's a bunch of half naked men playing beach volleyball on the beach. I'm gonna look. That's just how it is, right? Um, but it was fun. You get to see them having fun and just kind of goofing around and kind of like bonding over this game of volleyball. I think it was beach volleyball. And so yeah, he ends up late. He shows up at Charlie's house late. I mean, I was thinking, I was like, isn't he sweaty? He just played beach volleyball. Probably has sweat all down his butt crack. Like, and he's going to that lady's house thinking whatever he's thinking. Like, I don't know what
Well,
he's
he's
thinking is
cocky
going to happen.
enough to probably believe that she's gonna let him have a shower once he gets there.
Right. But she straight out says, no, I'm
That's
hungry.
right. Yep.
And, I thought that was funny. It was like, yeah, you can't assume that you're going to be allowed to have a shower. You should come ready for your date, sir. Like, that's how I felt. And so, anyways, they have a good conversation there and they talk. You get to see a little bit more about his past because he mentions, I think it was Sitting on the Dock of the Bay was playing. It's a song, an older song that was playing. And he was talking about how his mom used to go downstairs and dance to it. And then he goes on to talk a little bit about his dad and how he doesn't know the story behind his dad's passing. And his dad just happened to be a naval pilot as well.
Yep.
So we get like little glimpses here and there of his history, and that was one of the scenes I noticed where they started to kind of bring it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
So the next scene we see after this, if you're someone who likes to look for foreshadowing, we see Goose's family comes to visit him.
right.
And Goose is the only character that we get to see his family.
Mm-hmm.
So if you believe if you like looking at foreshadowing, this is a good foreshadowing scene of later on of what's to come.
Yeah, for
He's got
sure.
his kid there and his wife or his fiance, whatever their relationship is, but they're playing on the piano. Great Balls of Fire. Great
Yes.
song.
Yep. Jerry Lee Lewis.
Yep. Jerry Lee
Yep.
Lewis. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you kind of see their relationship. Yeah, Meg Ryan.
Yep.
Yeah, you get to see her. She's like, she plays a really good girl next door. And, you clearly see that they have a close relationship with Pete Mitchell, who's Maverick. And they, like Goose, obviously, and his family respect Pete a lot. Yeah, you really get to see how their family interacts with each other and the fact that she flew in with their little boy to come see Goose. It's quite sweet, a sweet moment. And it was funny when Meg Ryan goes off on Pete, like mentioning how he's always got a lady, or he's good with the ladies, their hearts are breaking everywhere. And Charlie, you could just see her kind of side eyeing in the corner, like, oh, okay. But she doesn't say anything. Her character
No,
doesn't say anything. She just kind of chills out in the corner. She's being very cool about it. Um,
but
you know,
like, let's be honest, that character should know that already, just based on
clearly.
the things that he's said to her, and like, yeah, just the
And the
base of the things
flirting,
on the things. Yeah.
the
Oh
swag
yeah.
on him. Yeah,
Yep.
she should already know. She should done know already what's going on, what's down and down.
They have another training exercise. It's
Yep.
Viper and Jester versus Hollywood and Maverick.
Yes.
Maverick and Goose, they lose. They're taken down.
Yes.
And the next scene after that, Iceman lectures Maverick in the locker room, and he says that he's more dangerous than the enemy because he left his wingman.
Right.
Maverick knows he messed up, but with Iceman going down first, Maverick still has a chance at winning the competition because Maverick or Iceman was taken down before Maverick.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You yeah, I have that. You know what? I wrote that down in my notes too, where you see Val Kilmer chatting with him in the locker room and just kind of like berating him over what happened. Um, and you also see you see in that scene where they're doing the simulation, you see him kind of get a little protective over his fellow comrades, but you also see him wanting to push that envelope again. You also see him wanting to push and go further. Um, you see that he loves a challenge. He loves the challenge. He'll take the opportunity if he sees it, and he likes to kind of mess around with authority as well. You see this behavior throughout the whole movie for most of the movie, I think.
So the next day, they continue the competition. Maverick
Yep.
and Goose lose control of their jet and have to eject.
Yes.
And unfortunately, Goose, I don't know
So what
if he
happens
was.
is there's a malfunction with the eject button. It's a fluke, it's a chance, it's not something that could be helped.
He dies. Goose
Goose
doesn't make it.
dies in it.
Yep.
And it's pretty sad because, you kind of really like Goose's character. I think that's the whole point. He's a very likable character. And so when you see all the blood on his face, you're like, no, Goose, no. And yeah, this is a turning point in the movie, I think, for Maverick's character, where he starts questioning what he's doing and the way he's moving.
It it causes Maverick to quit.
Yeah.
He's overtaken by the grief and the responsibility that he feels that lies on his shoulders. He packs up all of Goose's belongings and he takes them and gives them to Goose's family. And I think one of the things that causes him to bail on Top Gun is the fact that his Goose's wife is just like, he loved flying with you, and it just makes him feel even more
Responsible.
guilty
Yeah.
that it was, that happened with him.
Yeah. And the reason like he feels so guilty is because he was not following the rules of the simulation. And so they ended up in trouble, and that's what caused the emergency of ejection.
Hmm.
Right? So he
Yep.
ends up really taking that on personally, even though, there is a trial and it is deemed that he is not guilty and it was a fluke accident,
Yep. And could
not
not have
caused by
prevented
him.
or even predict it happening. There's
Right.
no
But
way. Yeah,
you see
no
him
onus on
really
him.
take that on personally, and that's when he decides that he's going to leave. But there is a nice scene in the locker room prior to that where before he leaves, where he's talking to Iceman. And Iceman kind of just says, like, look, I'm sorry about Goose. And there's no weirdness about it. It's just very honest and simple.
Sure.
I couldn't remember who it was, but you just see this guy sitting on a bench around the corner. He's like, we don't know who he's talking to, but he's like, yeah, Maverick's leaving. I thought that was
Well,
pretty.
I get a feeling from most of the I guess admin staff is not the right thing to say, but a lot of the people that are above Maverick, they don't like him. There's only a few select people that like him. Like Viper likes him because Viper knew his dad,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like a, it's not the same, but it's very similar to Maverick and Rooster in the second one. He's
Yeah.
just kind of like, he knows his dad, so now like Viper's trying to look out for Maverick, and so Viper likes him, but a lot of the other people don't. A lot of the office people and the other people that are involved in this school or
Yeah.
facility or whatever don't particularly care for him.
Yeah, and the thing is, they don't like him because he's a wild card, but they do respect his flying skills. Like they are in awe of his flying skills, but they don't like him as a person.
Yep.
You see, when he decides to quit, he ends up going over to Viper's home, like personal family home, and they end up having a conversation, and we find out what happens to his dad. And there is support there. Like you can feel that the captain is trying to support him in a way and kind of push him forward out of this great loss that he's gone through. Because
And
it was
he gives him an ultimatum too. You can either
yeah,
quit and see you
right,
later, or you can come graduate with your class.
right, right. And I think that's kind of to kind of push him to go forward, to move forward and not dwell
Absolutely.
on what has happened and kind of fall into an abyss. Yeah, I really liked that he gave him like this vote of confidence and some hope, because I think at that time for that character, for Maverick, it was very necessary to have that hope, because he kind of just like was falling apart, because Goose in a way was the one of the only people that he had in his life, because both his parents are gone. He doesn't have any siblings that we know of. And yeah, so that's what you see
There's a
there.
scene. There's a scene earlier in the movie where Goose and Maverick are talking in. Okay, I don't know if it's the locker room or if they're just sitting like in a room, and um, Goose tells him that he's worried that he's not going to come home to his family, and Maverick tells him, "You're the only family I got," to try
Yeah.
and reassure him that he'd look after him.
Right. And I think that's another reason like he feels so responsible, right? Because he knows Goose has a family, and he promised Goose that he would kind of look out for him
Yeah.
in a way. And so he does really take it hard. So
the other thing about Goose, the actor that played Goose, Anthony
Edwards,
he was the only one of the cast that went up into the jets and did not vomit while he was up there. The rest of the crew that was up there, they all got sick, and he's the only one that didn't, apparently.
In real life, when
they're in real life, yeah, the actor.
That's cool.
Yeah, because they shot all those air scenes. Most of those air scenes are shot up in the air.
They are, yeah. They were done by stunt pilots.
It cost them like a 1.8 million from the Navy to do that. Maverick heads to graduation and congratulates Iceman on finishing Top Gun in the class. Yeah. And immediately after that graduation, they are sent out on a mission. It looks like it's the result of the first mission that they ran at the beginning of the movie, where they were being scouted by the enemy ships.
Right.
Also, it's interesting that
they don't tell you who the enemy is.
They don't tell you who the enemy is.
No, but you know what? I looked it up, and I know it was the Iraqi war, the war in Iraq in the 80s. So I think they're trying to reference that without saying it. Okay. But yeah, it was. I did look it up, and it was the war in Iraq at that time in the 80s. They don't want to talk about it, obviously, because they want to show the movie wherever. But you know that's the enemy that they're fighting at the time.
But yeah, they have a long air battle, and they come out victorious. Maverick is celebrated as a hero and is given any duty he wants, and he picks being an instructor at Top Gun.
Right.
But yeah, no, overall, I think this movie it was really well done. I it wasn't
Hmm.
like it wasn't a movie that I watched as a kid. It was a movie that I've recently watched as an adult with my wife for the first time.
Hmm.
I didn't watch a lot of movies from before, like say 97, 96. I didn't watch a lot of those movies that
Jeff,
come
I'm
out
going
in
to
the
be
late
honest
80s.
with you, Jeff. I in the 80s, I was too busy looking for the movies with unicorns and
Yes.
princesses in them.
Yeah.
Like any Disney movie, anything
Yep.
with a unicorn in it, I was
Yep.
there. So I was not, and I wasn't old enough. I don't think I was even allowed to watch this movie at that time. So, um, I didn't watch it either. It came out when we were very young. Um, so it's kind of nice to watch it now as an adult. I think like I definitely can appreciate it a lot more.
Like I said, it overall, I thought it was a really well done movie. The effects were mostly practical. I don't even know
Yeah.
if there was any special effects in this movie. It it looks like it was all just practical effects. I I really enjoyed the movie. It was a lot of fun. Like I said, when I was watching it, I didn't feel like I was watching a movie. I don't
Yeah.
know how else to explain it, but like the cast had such a great chemistry. They all worked together really well. You could feel anytime that Iceman and Maverick were in the same room, you could feel the tension
Attention. Yeah.
while you're watching it, and it felt real.
Yeah. I mean, my overall thoughts of this movie, I really enjoyed it. I didn't think I was. I've never seen it. I don't know why I've waited 41 years to watch this movie, but I know my husband's a huge fan. He's seen it a bunch of times. But I never watched it with him because he saw it so much when he was younger. So I sat down to watch this movie and I thought it was going to be like this testosterone driven man fest, and so I never like was really interested in watching it, but sitting down and watching it, I really enjoyed it. I thought the flight scenes were well done. The cinematography was very well done. I feel like that movie could have been done now, um, just with different music because the music really ages that movie. But
But the soundtrack was incredible. Like the
the
soundtrack
soundtrack
was great.
is incredible. Yeah,
Yeah,
good jams in there. There's Berlin is in there. Take My Breath
My
Away,
Breath Away. Yeah.
and that's a classic. But yeah, the overall movie, it was fun. It had a good pace. It had a nice little romance going on in it. The action was terrific. Cinematography was good. The flight scenes were amazing. I just found it really interesting staring at the jets flying and all those scenes where they're like spinning upside down and you see the pilots in the plane, like that point of view where the pilot is flying the plane. I thought that was really neat how they did that as well.
So on our popcorn rating scale,
Yeah.
from kids popcorn to extra large popcorn, what do you give this?
Well, I think I'm going to give this a large popcorn with some butters, some extra butters, because I really enjoyed this movie. I feel like this movie is or was made for people who love like those kind of movies, like military type movies. And
The Navy did get an uptick in registrations after this movie came out.
oh, did
They
they?
did see an increase in their registrations. Yeah.
Yeah, because everyone wanted to be cool like Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
And Jeff, what's your popcorn rating?
I give it a large popcorn.
Yeah, large
Yeah.
popcorn. I'm
Yeah.
there with you, brother. I'm there with you.
Yep.
Um, Overall enjoyable movie, guys. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it.
Well, that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Please follow us on all the places that you can stream your podcasts, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We also have a bunch of social media places. We're on TikTok and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. So follow us along. Also, if you could on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave us like a review or rating. You can comment on anything, tell us how we're doing. That's it for this
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah, make sure you follow, guys, because we update what movie we'll be doing the following week. We'll update it on Instagram often or Facebook. Yeah, make sure you like, subscribe, and follow and get those notifications just so you can stay on top of what we're doing.
This is Jeff.
And this is SJ.
And you've been listening to the Popcorn Patrol podcast.
Join us next week as we get the kernels out for Top Gun. You see what I did there? Top Gun Maverick. I said yes. The kernels.
Yep.
I just told a mom joke.
Oh, mom joke. Okay, interesting. All right.
Yeah, it's mom joke now. Anyways, Popcorn Patrol out. Peace.